about hope, the HIV/AIDS fight. When you talk about hope, you have to start from where we are coming from to know how blessed we are, how lucky we have been since the outbreak came into our country, Uganda. And we will also talk about where we are going. But briefly, I'll tell you why we chose as Sinan Initiative, which is an NGO, by the way, to talk about hope, the HIV/AIDS fight. There is a mother of one of the children we look after, Mauricia. She passed away because she couldn't take her medicine. She had stigma, she had fear. We tried to convince her, but in vain she lost her life, and she ended up living a total orphan. So we made a promise that we'll have to add our voices to the already campaign about HIV/AIDS. And also talking about the HIV/AIDS, we will take a look at what happened with a man who is a hero to many of you. He fought the HIV/AIDS using his own example.
I was very much afraid. I knew I was in big trouble. I thought about my future, my past, and I felt so alone. I decided to come out if it is possible for me to launch a campaign, a crusade against AIDS, whereby my fellow human beings might be saved.
And then on April 13th, 1989, Philly Lutaya became the first prominent African to publicly declare he had AIDS.
Today is exceptional, because we are privileged for the first time in this country to have a real example of an AIDS victim who has astounded us.
Philly Lutaya decided to fight back. At Makerere University, the most prestigious in East Africa, he put his case.
I stand before you a living example of an AIDS victim. I have AIDS and have been told that my days are numbered. I beg you, give AIDS victims love and understanding. Don't desert us. Remember, if you do not take care, you too will soon be joining the ranks of the AIDS victims.
But people wanted always to ignore it and pretend as if it was not here. So I wanted to go on shouting loud about this crisis. I ignored people who were calling me a liar, people who were calling me an opportunist. I knew time would come when they would understand.
I want to welcome all our visitors to Gayaza High School. We are the oldest girls' school in Uganda and proud of it, but particularly today we want to welcome Mr. Philly Lutaya. We are so grateful that he has given up this time to come and share with us and allow us to sing along with him. Mr. Lutaya, you are very welcome to Gayaza High School.
I wish I was just on an ordinary visit here, as I used to come and visit my sister here some years ago. But today I have come to stand before you as a living example of an AIDS victim. This is serious. I never wanted this to happen to me. So, straightforward, I would like to tell you that I would not like this to happen to you, to any of you. The message I would like to give to you is that
Let us do our best to have a virus-free young generation. It's easy to avoid getting the virus. I beseech you that please be careful in the way you handle yourself. We need you.
On behalf of all the girls at Gaza High School, we would like to thank Philip Bongole Lutaya, and we are very grateful for your presence, for your presence here at school. And would like to say we love you. And as a token of our love, we have this small gift for you. Please receive it.
Thank you very much.
Let's come around, let's stand together and fight it. In times of joy, in times of sorrow, let's take a stand and fight on to the end. With open hearts, let's stand out and speak out to the world. We'll set some light, save the children of the world.
Today we are privileged and honored to have another hero for me, because I've known him personally. Dr. Peter Mjenyi is the director at Joint Clinical Research Center in Mengo. It is responsible for the research and technicalities in the search for HIV training and prevention. So we welcome Mr. Peter Mjenyi.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Peter, I'll start with you. Where have we come from to you?
Oh, we came from very, very far. The disease HIV was unknown until early 1980s.
Yes.
And that was the very first time that we got to know about it. In Uganda, it started around the Rakai area.
Yes.
Rather, that's where it was first noticed. And it was a strange disease. Nobody knew about it. Nobody knew how it came to be there and where it came from. We still don't know exactly. But then after that, the disease started increasing. It increased very rapidly, and by late 1980s, it had covered the whole country. And many people started dying of this disease, very many people. And there was no medicine. People just had no medicine, and many people remember desperate people living with AIDS started going to all kinds of places to look for help.
Yes.
Budomora became very common. Budomora were these 5-liter or 2.5-liter jerry cans, and many, many families lost relatives. By early 1990s, virtually everybody in Uganda knew about HIV/AIDS because it had affected many, many families. Currently, as we speak, we have got over 1 million people living with HIV/AIDS in Uganda. And we also have got over 1 million orphans. They are orphans because they lost one or two of their parents to HIV/AIDS. And it is a disease that has killed many, many of our citizens. We don't know the number, but they are running in thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Dr. Peter, looking back with all that catastrophe, do you think we've been lucky as Ugandans?
Well, I think we have been very lucky. First of all, we had good leadership that addressed AIDS in openness.
That's true.
Other countries which did not have that kind of leadership have suffered very, very badly. So there was openness about HIV/AIDS, and it is this openness that Philip Lutaya initiated.
Yes.
And also the president took leadership in talking openly about it at rallies, and all the people got to know about it. And we are very, very lucky because the message of prevention was spread countrywide.
what are some of your attributes to why we suffered initially the huge deaths of some of our Ugandan citizens?
The biggest reason why AIDS sort of spread so widely and was because of ignorance about it. When it came, we didn't know what it was, how it spread, and how to prevent it, and therefore people continued practicing risky behavior that was bringing the disease to be so prevalent. But the turning point came when people started being armed with knowledge,
yes,
how an individual could personally prevent AIDS from spreading to him. Now, armed with this knowledge of prevention, which included abstinence, yes, from sex,
yes,
included being faithful if you are married, including using condoms if you had to have sex.
yes.
These were the kind of messages that eventually brought AIDS to be controlled.
With the research going on currently, where are we headed?
Well, as I said, the word controlled is relative.
Yes.
We had a very high prevalence of HIV. At one time in some areas it was as high as 30%.
Yes.
The average was between 12 and 15% in the country. Currently it has been brought to about 6.4%.
That is really good.
That was a big achievement. So we still have got a lot to do. So we still have to carry on research to find new methods of prevention, more effective methods of prevention, because AIDS is still being spread in this country.
Yes.
To give you an example, it is estimated that in the year 2007,
yes,
we got about 140,000 new infections in Uganda.
140,000
Yes,
new infections
in Uganda.
Wow.
Now, if you are still getting AIDS spreading at that rate,
yes,
we cannot hopefully hope to control it completely. So we must strengthen research on prevention, and we must make our population be aware that AIDS is still around, it is still spreading, and that they need to take measures to protect themselves.
So speaking to their children here, their young adults, and of course their adults, what would you tell them, or some of the prevention methods that you can relate to them?
I think, the messages need to be tailored by age. The young children under the care of their guardians,
yes,
and mothers and
yes,
fathers. So first of all, addressing the parents and the guardians, you need to protect yourself if you are not infected, for the sake of the children that you are looking after. These children will do better if you are alive to take good care of them.
yes.
So really, that's the message I give you if you are a guardian taking care of the children.
Yes.
Now, the methods for prevention, we have gone through them. They are very well known, and you need to uphold them all the time. Then there is another group. If you are a care provider for children, young children, like these lovely kids I'm seeing here, and you are infected, you need to take care of your health. We are very fortunate, we have drugs which are available. You need to go to a health center which has trained medical care providers to give you very good treatment. I'm very glad to say, with good treatment, good care from a good health center, people living with AIDS can live much, much longer and live a productive health, be free of recurrent infections, and be able to look after their families, pay school fees for the children, and work to develop themselves and the nation.
Dr. Peter, when I was in your office, you said that what's the difference with people who have just joined the taking of ARVs and the length of time that they can live, and the people who started taking ARVs later, such that they can understand?
Yes, that is a very important issue that you are raising. People need to go for medical checkup as early as possible. If you go early for checkup and one is found to have HIV and he starts medical care and treatment early, chances of living longer are much, much better, many, many times better than someone who waits until it is too late.
Yes.
He goes very, very ill,
Yes.
maybe he's in coma. Many of them can still be treated, but the chances of survival, as you can see, as you can imagine, are less than someone who has gone for treatment early.
I would like to introduce this book. Dr. Peter Mjenyi has written a book, Genocide by Denial, How Profiteering from HIV/AIDS Killed Millions. This is the book that he wrote, and I encourage each one of you who can, it's in all the bookstores, please access this book. You really understand more about HIV/AIDS from Genesis, where it started from, to where we are right now. So I hope you've seen the book. It's Genocide by Denial, How Profiteering from HIV/AIDS Killed Millions. Dr. Mjenyi, here you say about your worst fear. You know, people living with AIDS, it's a daily consumption.
Yes.
They need to know how available would these drugs be. We know that we get them, most of them, from out of the country.
Yes.
And please tell us of the available ones domestically here, because I know our factory has just opened up.
Yes. Well, from 2004, drugs have increasingly been available in Uganda for treatment of HIV/AIDS, and they are in Ministry of Health facilities. You can get them from other providers like TASO, like Joint Clinical Research Center. We have very good places like Mild May.
Yes.
They take very good care of children. And so, please, everybody who is sick, who wants to know their serostatus, whether they have HIV or not, please report to me, to all of these facilities, Ministry of Health facilities, your health care centers. Now, the availability of drug, recently we have got good news in
Yes.
Uganda, and that is that a factory has opened
Yes.
at Luzira that produces some of the antiretroviral therapy.
Yes.
This is very good news because these drugs are being made here in our country, and they will increasingly be available from a factory here, although for the time being we will continue to also get them from abroad, and this makes availability of the drugs better
Yes.
for our country. And we hope in the future, as the factory becomes more productive, more efficient, we'll be able to get these drugs cheaper. And in any case, we won't have to wait for import and that kind of procedure that takes place when drugs have to be imported from abroad. So drugs are available, and people should go to get treatment in the Ministry of Health centers.
Are these drugs for free, especially at JCRC?
Yes, the drugs are free
Yes.
for patients.
The drugs are free, so that is very good news to some of us. At JCRC in Bengo.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you need to access this care and treatment, and you need not only to access it yourselves, you need to inform other people who are living in denial or have stigma and are fearing death, or are fearing because of stigma. You need to inform them that there is no need for stigma. This is a disease that can be treated like other diseases, and the outcome with treatment can be very, very good indeed.
So, Dr. Mjenyi, where do you see the hope? Is it in behavior change? Or here in your introduction, you say the remaining hope for the world, especially the poor people, is the inherent goodness within humanity to recapture the higher moral ground in critical issues that affect health and well-being of all.
Yeah, I'm very glad you raised this issue. AIDS is a worldwide problem, and so we need the world to work together to fight this scourge. Last week in Washington Post, it was headline that AIDS had increased in the United States Capitol, and in Uganda, and we have had it for almost 2 decades as a big problem, and in Southern Africa we are having the highest rates on the continent. So what I'm saying
Yes.
there
Yes.
is that we need to work together as the world. It is an emergency. We need the help of developed countries. We need compassion, and we need aid to fight this emergency, which is a global problem. It is not purely an African problem. And so we hope that kind of thinking takes the upper moral ground to be able to help poor countries to overcome this scourge.
At this point, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. Please don't go away. We're talking about hope, the HIV/AIDS fight. We are privileged and honored to have Dr. Peter Mjenyi, the director at Joint Clinical Research in Mengo, and then the World Health Organization representative, Dr. Niwajira Innocent, to help us know where we have come from in AIDS and where we are and where we should go regarding HIV and AIDS. Now, Dr. Mjenyi, I always ask everybody who comes to the show, what are your human values that others can learn from you?
Well, I think the most important thing is to be of help and use to your fellow human beings and do your best, particularly in my profession, to alleviate suffering where you find it.
Dr. Niwajira, I'll start with the nutritional component to this HIV/AIDS. Many children here, and I'm sure they will raise this when you open up questions. The issue when you're on ARVs, you need to really take care of your nutrition very well. Please articulate that for us such that they know what they are supposed to do regarding to that.
Thank you, Farida, and our viewers and listeners, I greet you. Nutrition is very important in every disease situation. So that's the basic.
Yes.
Even whether you have malaria or any other illness, you still need to eat well. The drugs that people take for whichever illness, we also need to find either a strong or an improving body to be able to have the person recover completely from that illness. But when it comes to HIV and AIDS, that is actually a special case, because the drugs that people take have got some side effects which may weaken their bodies.
Yes.
And because of that, they need to eat really well to be able to stand the challenge of having to continue taking the drugs and be able to recover as quickly as possible.
Yes.
So you need food to be able to generate the energy that has been lost as a result, as a consequence of the illness, and also, build muscles and other parts of the body for proper functionality. Even brain, even the heart, even the legs, even the muscles, they all need food.
Yes.
Because, HIV/AIDS is a devastating disease. Professor Mjenyi told you that it's one of the biggest challenges for the public health system in the whole world, not just in Uganda, but in the whole world. So what that means is, most of the families that have been affected by HIV and AIDS have also had, as a consequence of that, in most cases, the question of poverty. Because, as you noted at the beginning, people who died at the beginning were adults, mainly because these are the people who probably had moved from place to place and in the process got infected. And these were bread earners or salary earners or money. They were the people capable of getting money and attracting money and looking after their families.
Yes.
Probably more than 1 million children in Uganda have been orphaned as a result of AIDS. A good number of them are total orphans.
Yes. Child-headed families.
Child-headed families. You see? So they are forced to live with relatives who also have got their own burdens. So the economic situation in some cases is really worse. And as a result of that, people are unable to get the basic necessities like food and others. So it's really a bad situation.
What is the mandate of World Health Organization?
Well,
Where can we pin you down?
Well,
As World Health Organization.
you can pin me down on everything or on nothing. But what I'm saying is, World Health Organization has got a mandate, a health mandate. It is the global leader of health.
Yes.
Things to do with health of people, including diseases, including other factors that affect human functionality.
Yes.
In terms of health. But the specific responsibility regarding food is shared between WHO and World Food and other agencies. So what WHO does is to provide the nutritional advice. We don't give food. We provide nutritional advice. We say you need to eat a balanced diet, you have to eat enough proteins, you have to eat enough carbohydrates, and you go ahead to give what foodstuffs have enough of carbohydrates, enough of proteins, enough of fats. You have to balance it out.
Where do you see the hope for the HIV/AIDS fight?
There are two things we must do at the same time, and not one above the other.
Yes.
One, we must stop those people that do not have the infection from getting it. It's a primary responsibility of everyone.
And it's cheaper.
Whether you are infected or not infected, you have a personal responsibility to make sure that the virus, either in you or in another person, does not go on to another person. That's the main hope. We have to prevent people from getting infected. The second line is to make sure that those that are infected are assisted to live longer and live a quality life. If we can balance the two, to me I think we can overcome the thing of HIV, this disease of HIV and AIDS. And when I talk of people who are living with HIV to live longer and a better quality life, then I'm talking about improved nutrition, I'm talking about access to drugs, the drugs that Professor Mjenyi has been talking about.
We would like Professor Mjenyi to tell us which drugs are now on the market, such that people can actually go and access them when they know their names and how good they are.
Yes, the drugs which are available are quite many now. That's why it is very important that people access these only from qualified healthcare providers. There are drugs that we call first-line drugs.
First-line drugs.
Yeah, these are the drugs which people who are starting treatment for the first time normally go on. Now, before we start these drugs,
yes,
we normally do a checkup of the patient. So it would be a mistake for patients to go and self-medicate, that is, take these medicines themselves. It
yes,
would be a very serious mistake.
Yes.
They need to go to healthcare providers, be checked, and then after being checked, they will find whether they are at a stage when they need treatment, and then proper first-line drugs will be prescribed. There are many different, there are a number of drugs that can be used for first line.
Yes.
One of the commonest that we use is marketed as Diovia N.
Diovia N.
Diovia N.
Okay.
It consists of 3 drugs.
Yes.
And that type of combination is taken one tablet twice a day.
Yes.
There is another drug which is normally taken by people who are starting treatment for the first time,
yes,
or people who have been diagnosed with HIV and are not yet at a stage to access treatment. That drug is called Septrin.
Septrin.
Yeah, it does not work on HIV directly, but it helps the patient avoid many other complications, other opportunistic infections, and it makes HIV drugs work better for people who are starting treatment by preventing some of the complications, and we encourage people to always be on it for as long as the doctor recommends it. So this is the first-line drugs. Now, the danger of misuse of your first-line drug is that the virus can become resistant. And this is something we want to avoid as much as possible.
When you talk about misuse, what exactly do you mean, doctor?
This treatment requires that it is taken strictly according to doctor's orders, doctor's instructions. This is not a treatment that you can take, stop, and take and keep stopping. It is a treatment which, if you start taking it, you must make absolutely sure that it's taken every day according to instructions.
Yes.
The danger of stopping treatment and starting is that the virus can become resistant to the first-line drugs, and then we have to start what is called second-line treatment. Second-line treatment is very expensive to use and is a little bit more complicated.
Yes.
And then we would like to avoid having to go to it unless it is inevitable. And then if someone continues to misuse even the second-line drugs, then we have got a more serious problem. We may have to resort to drugs which are just now being discovered. And these drugs are many times more expensive and more complicated to use. So our hope as a country and our people is to make sure that we use first-line drugs very well, and that people on this treatment are regularly monitored by healthcare providers who are qualified in the proper places like Ministry of Health centers, where personnel who are experts in use of the drugs can be found.
Now, Dr. Mujenyi, according to your experience, the children born with HIV/AIDS, how far have you seen them go in terms of years?
Well, children respond very well to treatment, just like adults. So please, all children who have HIV or who are suspected to have HIV should be taken to healthcare providers. We are able to make a diagnosis, and we have children's medicines available. All children who need treatment, it is available and it is free. And the response is very good, and the rules of use of drugs is the same. People who are looking after children must make sure, absolutely sure, that the children are taking drugs properly, the way they have been prescribed, that they are taking the proper doses, that children are not somehow skipping their doses, and when they do this, they will be able to respond just like adults do. And there is another thing.
Yes.
Women who are pregnant and they have HIV, they need to urgently go to see healthcare providers. The healthcare providers will check them, and they will be able to give them treatment and advice so that they reduce the chances of their babies being born with HIV. And then if they give birth to babies,
yes,
we check the babies very quickly soon after birth. And after checking them, if we find that these babies somehow have got HIV,
yes,
we have treatment for them. The earlier you treat the children, the better.
So Ushinde is a little girl living with HIV and AIDS, and she has been privileged to join the education program. She will be educated by people, and she is in Kitale Primary School. So please introduce yourself to Ushinde and your family, and tell us what you want to tell the people. You're welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shin Rebecca. I'm 13 years old, and my young sisters are Esther Pendo, Sarah Mvisha, and Susan Barrett. As you can see them,
The mother is right there. You're most welcome.
I'm here to advise people who are infected by HIV, who are HIV positive,
Yes.
to go on taking their drugs and to be strong. Like I've had some people that are not strong, they think that they are bewitched. They go on fearing others, like they can destroy their things in their houses. If they had that, they are HIV positive. But me and my sisters, my mother told us not to fear. We trust in God. We pray every day. We take our drugs in time. And there is a neighbor who told my mother to take us for checking.
Yes.
And my mother took us to Kamocha Christian Caring Community.
Yes.
We were 5. I was the first. They phoned me when I'm HIV positive.
Yes.
The second one, she's not around. She's called Mahoro Mercy. She was negative.
Yes.
And the third was Sarah, was positive. The fourth was Susan, was negative. And the fifth was positive. And I want to thank Aunt Farida and the staff members for helping us and me. I advise people who are there to help people who are in villages, because I know people who are in villages, most of them, they don't get enough treatment. They are there suffering. They don't know what to do. I want you to reach them and help them.
Don't worry, today we have JCRC. They are free ARVs in Mengo, whoever is looking for them. So really don't despair for those of you who have HIV and AIDS. So you still have a message?
Well, that's all I had for you.
Thank you so much.
It is one of the biggest epidemics that this world has ever seen. At the current time, we have 42 million people around the world who are suffering or infected with this insidious disease. We've had 20-some million people die from it. We have 14 to 15 million orphans.
Nearly 30 million people on this continent are living with HIV/AIDS, including 3 million children under the age of 15.
Although HIV/AIDS started as a global epidemic in the early 1980s, Africa now houses more than 2/3 of the total global number of human immunodeficiency virus infections.
HIV/AIDS everywhere, in hospitals, in communities, and in rural areas. It is just too far to the health centers.
Epidemic pattern and culture.
Well, Uganda is the one country that is really a shining light. They have been able to reduce the infection rate from 21% of their population down to 6%.
President Museveni and Uganda have pursued a direct and comprehensive anti-AIDS strategy. They emphasize abstinence and marital fidelity as well as condoms to prevent HIV transmissions. They developed a strategy. They're implementing the strategy for the whole world to see. And the results have been magnificent.
My husband is a fighter. He had just been through a war, and we thought we had finished with that phase in our lives, in our country, that here was peace and we were going to lead peaceful lives. And when AIDS came, he said he had to start making this alarm as loud as possible to make people know that there was a new enemy and it truly was dangerous.
The government made a very loud nduru. So there is danger. There is danger in the village.
Our President Yoweri Museveni, took over power, and through his wisdom realized that there was something going amiss. There was a disease that was affecting his colleague soldiers. and he started asking questions. And his suspicion was confirmed when in fact a large number of his colleagues, soldiers, about 60 who were sent for training somewhere abroad, 18 of them were HIV positive. That showed that clearly this population was facing something gigantic.
That we got scared. And I thought that if our children don't get to learn about how they can protect themselves from AIDS, that we would be doing nothing. When we that if you don't get yourself involved in sex, you don't catch AIDS. So we started teaching our children about abstinence from sex, and it made such a big impact.
Mama Wabana, HAJAT NAMBI FARIDAH, Uganda is proud of you.